Oh, faff, I've forgotten to hit record. Whatever. Sorry, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. Illness-free this week, disease-free, fired up, ready to go.
Brilliant.
Hold up. Oh, hang on.
Wow, he's back on the 7-Ups, mate. Oh, no. That means that all the viewers are going to know that I'm going to have to edit out at least 79 rinsed burps as I'm editing this episode all over again.
I shall try and refrain from...
Lucky me.
Oh, there we are. Straight away. It's impossible to do with 7-Up.
Brilliant.
It's impossible to do. I'm very well. I've had a good week. I've been to 2 vinyl shops this week and bought a great big haul of old, well, arguably, some of it arguably old shite. But I bought a lot of interesting things.
Amazing. Is it any better than Des O'Connor and Harry Seacon that I got you for your birthday?
I've got those pride of place in the corner, mate. I haven't found a stylus yet that I really want to inflict on those two. They both look like somebody has cracked an egg across both of them and put them under a van, and they need to have some sort of they need to be full on sandblasted, I think, before they go anywhere near a stylus.
In my defence, they did look like that when I bought them.
Yes,
that's all I'm going to say.
I can tell they've come from a charity shop. You do find the odd collection in charity shops, but 99% of the time, most charity shop stuff usually looks like it has been under a bus. Anyway. So I've been to 2 proper vinyl shops this week. So I must give a quick shout out to both of those, which is I went to Rockabye Records in Oakham, who have a huge social media following, and they do TikTok videos. And for those people that haven't seen it before, they do all the Right Dad videos and things. It's a father and son run the shop. Went up there. They were very, very nice chaps. Met them all, which is kind of weird going to a record shop where you already know what it looks like and what the people in it look like.
Right.
It was very, very strange. They're almost like sort of minor celebrities. So that's a really good shop. And I went to play it again in Wantage, which is over near where I work. And that, again, some fantastic stuff in there. Really nice to go to 2 shops where it's vinyl collecting is still a big thing for both of them.
Right. So as such, that means it's now time for...
Roger the Horace's Vinyl Shopping.
Anyway, so back in the day, I had a few 12-inch records that disappeared. I don't know where they went. And I can remember about 3 of them, one of them being Land of Confusion by Genesis. Remember that song?
Oh, mate. Come on, mate. I had a little tingle when you said that. What a tune. Go on. I'm all ears.
That is an absolute banger.
It is.
The only thing that's not good is the actual 12-inch remix of that song, because they literally make it last 8.5 minutes long by extending the drums at the beginning. And that sounds like it'll probably be good, but they run out of ideas. But anyway, I bought it for the B-side because the 7-inch version of Land of Confusion is on that as well. And there's a fantastic B-side on that 12-inch. It's never been on anything else, called Feeding the Fire. And that 12-inch of mine's gone. It's disappeared.
Right.
So I went looking for one of those.
What do you mean? Like when you moved or something?
Well, it's just vanished. I don't know. Well, I don't know where it's gone. It was one of the first ones I ever bought, I think. And it's just because there was a phase back in the mid-90s when we used to buy 12-inch records. Do you remember?
Yeah.
You used to buy 12-inch records?
Yeah, I bought a few, yeah.
And you usually get follow the same pattern. You get an extended version on side A, sometimes the 7-inch version, or a couple of tracks on side B.
I believe I may have bought the 12-inch version of There's No Stopping Us by Ollie and Jerry. What an absolute banger that is.
Well, I've see that. Well, of course, and I've got that. Found that in a charity shop, a 12-inch version of that.
Yeah.
And it is as equally as good as you remember.
Amazing,
if not better. So
what are you going to do about this Land of Confusion drama then?
Well, I'm trying to find one, and I've yet to find one. I don't want to cheat and buy one on the internet for 9p. I'd actually quite like to find it in a shop because if you remember. Back then,
don't bite your nose off to spite your face. You might as well, if you can find one for 9p, why not? But get one online, you lemon.
I think it came out in 1986. I want to say 1986, and that isn't me looking it up. I'm pretty sure it's then, and it was around about the time that Spitting Image was big. Now, do you remember that?
How can I not? Bloody hilarious.
Of course.
Don't get me started.
The video for Land of Confusion was all that Genesis as Spitting Image puppets. And
yeah, I remember that video. It's amazing. Phil Collins' squashed little face with his wiggy spam. It's brilliant.
Well, the cover of the 12-inch has also got them 3 on it as the puppets from Spitting Image, which was probably taken in very good in jest at the time, because I imagine Phil Collins wasn't overly excited about the way he used to look on Spitting Image. It's always used to make me laugh.
Probably not.
But anyway, if you remember rightly, Spitting Image had a song that came out called the Chicken Song. Do you remember that?
I do remember it. I think it got to number one, which is mental. And the video was insane, wasn't it?
It did get to number one. I think it was a reaction to something else horrible which came out, I think, a year before that, which was called Agadoo. Do you remember that as well?
Oh, Black Lace. Yeah, that was a dreadful song. Yeah, dreadful.
But the Chicken Song was a Mickey take of that, wasn't it? And it got to number one.
Mm.
And I was looking back through some other stuff, and the Chicken Song had a very, very outrageous B-side that we can't talk about. But I also had a 12-inch. You'd have to go and look it up on the internet. I had a 12-inch of the Chicken Song as well. So I was rather hoping that I'll be able to get both. But unfortunately, I haven't managed to find either. So if anybody knows where there's a copy of the Chicken Song or Genesis Land of Confusion on 12-inch, I'll be very interested to know.
See, this is where it all gets a bit. You're such a weirdo. I can understand I can understand Genesis, but the Chicken Song by Spit. Why would you want that?
Because I used to absolutely love watching Spitting Image. I got a DJ extended mint condition version of Word Up by Cameo, the real version, not the gun one.
Well, of course I remember that. That's a disco classic.
Yeah. Ghastly Cherish by Kool and the Gang, which was an awful tune.
I love Kool and the Gang, but that's not a very good song.
No, IOU by Freeze. Remember that?
No.
All right. That's killed that off. I thought you were going to go. Well, yeah, that Arthur Baker produced one of the first songs ever to use samples just before Bomb the Bass. Remember Bomb the Bass, Beat This?
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
A mint condition copy at long last of Man Eater by Hall & Oates.
Hall & Oates, that's a tune, isn't it?
Which you can ruin for anyone by telling everybody that you can replace the part in the chorus with Fan Heater. And it does work as well. And now you won't be able to hear it any differently.
Yeah.
After you've heard that. And there's an obsessed B-side on it. Look at the state of those. Oh, you can't.
Look at that tash. Yeah, I can see it for the webcam.
Yeah. I know you can. Yeah. Delayed Reaction is the B-side. What a great name.
What a load of old shit, Danny. Look at that tash. What a lemon. What a greasy lemon. He's trying to be Magnum PI there.
I think John Oates' moustache on the back of that album there really could be referred to as a cock duster, which is
that's hilarious. One of them's got a big chin growth, one of them's got a big tash. It's like they've done half of the goatee each.
Daryl Hall's got a very interesting YouTube channel where he plays stuff in his house, in his basement. Have you seen that? Any of that?
Oh, right. No, I haven't, no.
He has all these, I think it's called something like Daryl's House. All the famous people turn up and they all jam songs in the basement. So like one guy from the Eagles will turn up and then they all play Eagles tunes. Mate, everyone thinks it's terrible, but I've watched it a few times. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, mate, I'll check that out.
And then here we go. This one, you'll like this one. So what year is this? Hold on a minute. 1984. So there was a film that came out in 1984 called Vision Quest, which wasn't a big film at the time. But if you remember, it was about boxing, I think. And it had, Madonna had 2 songs on it, which weren't available on any other albums, which was Gambler.
Is that Matthew Modine?
Who?
So he's an actor?
I don't know who that is. We'll have to look that up. It's called Vision Quest. Hold on a minute. Yes, it is Matthew Modine. It's on the back of the record. I should have looked a bit harder. Yes, it is.
Thought it was.
Yeah.
He looks about 12.
Yeah. He's got his knockers out on the back as well. Look at that.
State of him. Wow. He's seriously ripped there. I've never seen that. I'm 100% going to check that out.
So anyway, this is where Gambler and Crazy For You came from Madonna.
Oh, mate, I've got to chime in here. I was talking to my girlfriend only the other day about an absolute classic 80s B movie that I watch every year religiously because it's brilliant. At Close Range. And it's one of those B movies that disappeared under the radar. It's with Sean Penn and Christopher Walken as his crook father. It's like a big thriller. And that's the song that Madonna wrote Live to Tell for. And she does the soundtrack. And it's absolutely brilliant. So everyone knows about Live to Tell, but that movie sort of slipped under the radar, but it's brilliant. If anyone wants an amazing 80s thriller, go and check out At Close Range. Fantastic film.
I'm literally going to watch that today because didn't know that Live to Tell was in any film because it's on True Blue, isn't it?
Yeah, well, she wrote that for that. Well, her and
I didn't know that.
And the producer wrote that for that movie. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that. That's when she was with Sean Penn, I think, wasn't it? True Blue.
I think it might have been. Yeah.
Anyway, this soundtrack, by the way, sorry, I'm digressing, is absolutely full of winners. Journey's on it. John Waite.
It does sound very cool.
Don Henley, who was the drummer in the Eagles, Boys of Summer.
Yeah, a wonderful song, Boys of Summer.
Dio's on it for some reason. Dio and Madonna on the same soundtrack. Sammy Hagar's on it and Foreigner with Hot Blooded, which is another absolute banger. This is a really good soundtrack. It's way better than the film, apparently.
No, I'm going to check it out, mate.
A mint condition copy of Long Cold Winter by Cinderella, which...
Oh, mate, Cinderella are one of those bands that for some reason never crossed my path. I never got into them in my youth for some bizarre reason, but loads of people I knew were.
This is a great record, Long Cold Winter. It's very, very... it's very hard to find mint condition copies of it. As you can see, there's not an awful lot on the cover because obviously the whole point is it's completely white and it's normally knackered. But this is an absolute outstanding copy that I got from one of these shops.
I'm looking at it through my webcam. It looks really, really nice condition. Fair play to you. Oh, look out. He's just pulled a classic out of the bag.
Mint condition copy of No Jacket Required by the legend himself, Mr. Phil C. Collins.
What a record, mate. What a record.
From 1985. And this is literally brand new. You could eat your dinner off it and it was a £5. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Amazing. Fair play, mate. Fair play. Horace has spoken. What can I say? Welcome to Backstage Pass, the podcast which pulls back the curtain on the music industry with banter, comedy, and essentially two blokes having a laugh. With myself, James Maverick, and my good friend, Rob Newson, otherwise known as Roger the Horace.
Band reformation news this week. Nope, you got no idea?
Apart from Oasis?
Well, not Oasis. No, not them. No, it wasn't them. Fairground Attraction.
Oh, dear God. No, I'm out of here. I can't freaking stand them. Oh, God. Do you like them?
No, they're ghastly. But they
absolutely terrible.
They're making a big deal of it, so I figured it was...
It's got to be a sniper. You know, I don't care.
Oh, the biggest load of old...
Oh, mate, that song drove me insane when I was a kid. It just went on and on and on. They only had one song, and that was crap. So what?
That was the beginning and the end of their career. But they've reformed and they're doing shows. So fuck knows what they're going to play for the rest of the night. I've absolutely no idea. Well, apparently they had one proper album that came out that did sell at the time. On the strength of that song, did sell like X amount of million copies. And then the second album came out after they'd already broken up.
Well, here's my review of Fairground Attraction. Absolute shit.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly right. So we've established how I am. So more to the point, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, mate. I am all right, except I'm actually feeling quite burnt out at the moment, and I'm gagging for a holiday. Do you know when you just feel like just tired in your bones? You know, I've had a really busy few years, especially with my audio business, which has gone bananas this year. I'm super happy, don't get me wrong. I'm really busy, and that's really great. But yeah, I just feel like I need to be whisked off to some sort of hot, sandy beach so I can recharge my Duracells and get some sun in my bones. But other than that, I'm all good. Thank you. But yeah, I've got quite a bit of news because people have been contacting us again since episode 6. So I'm just going to get on with it because our host, Acast, shout out to Acast that host this podcast. They can only host a maximum of an hour per episode. So we might as well just get on with it, mate. So I'll tell you. So,
Right.
aforementioned a few times on this pod, Ollie Mitchell, the vocalist from the now defunct Johnny Truant, the amazing band on Underground Records that we both have mentioned and enjoyed touring with. I reached out to him because I found out he'd heard the podcast, and completely out of the blue, early this week, he FaceTimed me from Toronto, Canada, where he lives, and we had a chat for about 90 minutes. It was absolutely epic. I don't think I've seen him for over 20 years.
Amazing.
And he hasn't changed. He's still awesome, absolute lovely human. And it was amazing talking to him and catching up with him. And he sends his love to both of us, sends a shout out to you. And I'm really happy to report that he's been working in the music industry all this time, and he works for a management company. He's doing really well. And one of Ollie's bands who he manages is that band Crownlands, mate.
Oh yeah, Crownlands, yeah. Yeah, they sound like Rush. Only I think there's 30% less of them.
Yeah, there's two of them. So there's a drummer, singer, and then there's that mad guitarist that has he has that double-pronged, like there's a guitar on top, a bass on the bottom, and then he does the synths with his feet.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware that was one of Ollie's bands that he managed, but their success is down to him. So hats off to him, because Crownlands they're quite something to behold, aren't they?
They're very good, yeah, very good. I've not seen them live yet, though. Actually, I think they might have played in London. I'd like to go and see them if they played in London sometime. Don't know if they're playing over here. I should look.
I would echo them sentiments. I'd love to go and see them. It's not often you get a two-piece that make actually that much noise, and I'd like to see what it's like live.
No, except the Proclaimers. There hasn't really been anybody that's come up to the mark, really, is there?
Trust Roger the Horace to bring proceedings down to that level, bloody Proclaimers.
Oh, I wrote some bangers of Proclaimers.
They did.
North of the Border.
Yeah.
Double Denim, they rocked it, mate.
But anyway, I'm trying to big up Ollie Mitchell and Crownlands here. I don't want to talk about fucking... I do want to talk about Proclaimers, actually, because they're awesome, but not in this particular instance. Anyway, so huge love to Ollie. Shout out to him. And, I'm hoping he might come and stay with me later this year, because he's jetting over to the UK. So we'll have to get a band of hounds together and go out for a drink with him, won't we? That'd be awesome. Anyway, I also have to shout out Mr. Lee Barrett, our mutual friend Lee Barrett, and shout out to him and his business, which is his handle for his business is at Lee Barrett Photography, because Mr. Barrett is the person that's guilty for mine and Horace's magnificent new podcast cover art, which we have shared on social media, which we're all very, very stoked about, because it's basically a sort of a pastiche of and a send-up of mine and Horace's love for classic 70s game shows, and Blankety Blank in particular, and our love for the two Roddies. I think we're in agreement that we think that cover art works quite well, don't we?
Yeah, it does. It lends itself to that time period.
Yeah.
When you could say anything you liked and didn't matter.
And you know what? I can't stop laughing whenever I see the cover art, because the styling, it reminds me of Blankety Blank when Les Dawson used to host Blankety Blank, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And you're in the same bracket as Les Dawson, because Les Dawson, when I was a boy, he was one of a few comedians. I'd look at him and I'd be pissing myself before he'd even opened his mouth, because he was an absolute comedy genius. When he used to do all that when he played the piano wrong on purpose and all that, absolutely brilliant.
Out of tune, yeah, and it's very
And when he did Blankety Blank, he always used to do every couple of episodes, he'd do it the other way round. So he'd go, and there's your Blankety Blank, check pen and book. And even that used to make me laugh. And he used to do that thing with his bottom jaw, he used to do that thing with his mouth.
But he always used to look like he was thoroughly cheesed off with everything, didn't he, all the time? And he had that sort of facial expression where he was sort of always gurning.
Yeah, he did a Beverly Eggy.
Yeah, Beverly Eggy, yeah, of course, yeah. You should probably explain what that is, because people aren't going to understand what
Shout out to Shitlegs. He'll know what a Beverly Eggy is. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I'm actually just going to... do you know what? I'm just going to go there right now. I'm in such a good mood. I'm just going to go there. Shitlegs will probably laugh when he hears this. So I've said before that me and Shitlegs used to work in the same office block, and then later on we worked actually in the same office. And I'm not going to tell you her full name, but there was a co-worker this mature lady called Beverly that we used to work with. And bless her, she was a very sweet woman. But she had this unfortunate appearance of having this very pronounced underbite. And she just looked massively eggy the whole time. Like her default facial expression was one of egginess. And whenever she walked past me and Marcus in the corridor, he'd just piss himself. Because she just looked so eggy all the time. So after that, whenever me and Marcus saw that anyone looked a bit pissed off or a bit eggy, we'd just look at each other and go, Beverly Eggy. And then it just, so it just stuck for the rest of our lives. That poor woman, she must have been really confused that every time she walked past Marcus, he'd start tittering to himself.
Amazing.
It wasn't our fault, though. It was really funny. Anyway, we're digressing. At Lee Barrett Photography, that's Lee Barrett's photography business. He's a really nice bloke, and he really knows what he's doing with his photography. He does a lot of burlesque stuff. So if you check out his photographs, there'll be a lot of really good burlesque photography. And he's hilarious. He's one of the funniest blokes you're ever likely to meet. So if you do a photo shoot with him, you'll spend most of it pissing yourself, which isn't a bad thing. So shout out to Lee. He's awesome.
Yeah.
But I suppose... the next person that contacted us that I need to hand over to you for that, because we heard from Thick Mop and the Pretenders emailed us, didn't he?
He sent me a very, very nice message, actually, saying that he'd listened to I don't know. He'd listened to I'm just sorry. I don't know.
You just made a noise like a ferry. What's going on?
Well, he told me that obviously, I'm not really sure. We used to call him Thick Mop much when he was actually in the country.
I bloody well did. Every flipping band practice, I called him Thick Mop.
He did write in the email that he still has a thick mop, which that made me die for a start. And he said he loves hearing the stories, the ones that he remembers, and some of them he doesn't remember. I was wondering if perhaps his thick mop has clouded his vision these days, and it's thicker than it normally is. It was a lovely message, and he's had a great time. He's having a great time. I'm sorry, in Canada with Emily, and I'm supposed to have sent him an email.
You haven't replied yet.
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, for heaven's sake! You've been so busy catching up with your Roger the Witter Horace, so busy catching up with your gob wittering that you haven't even bloody sent him a reply yet. You arsehat.
I'm so sorry. I haven't sent him Nev, if you are listening, I'm terribly sorry. I'll write you an email the minute we finish talking.
Mate, you've got to reply.
But I'm glad he's all right, and he's taken it in very good stead, to be honest.
It's amazing to hear from him. Absolutely amazing.
What a legend. What a thick mop legend. Oh. Pardon me, sorry, but
there you go. That's got to be the Rancid 7-Up burp number 14 at least already that I've got to edit out. Cheers for that.
Oh dear. Right. So there we go. So we had a message from Nev. Lovely. Very nice to hear from him, actually. Glad he's doing all right.
Do you know what? We've got to go out there.
We'd have to start saving up. I think it's quite expensive out there.
Well, I'm doing it. We should do it. It'll be amazing.
Yeah. Let's go to Canada.
Right, Rob. There's one other person that I've reconnected with. You've got to let me witter about this. I'm so excited. It's so obsessed.
Go for it.
Do you remember? I think it was in. I think it might have been episode 2 when we were talking about the people that we've been able to reconnect with as a result of the pod. And I did mention that the lovely Joseph Payne, the old vocalist from Little Ten, reconnected with me, right? And I remember on the pod that I was saying that we'd spoken on Zoom and we'd reconnected and how awesome that was. Mate, while I was talking to him on Zoom, see, I didn't realise, back in the day, I always thought Joseph Payne was just an awesome vocalist, but he's not. In the convening couple of decades since I haven't known him, he's gone off and established himself as a very good guitarist and bass player. So he's now a multi-instrumentalist. And I found out he's been writing his own music under the moniker 2332. There's a meaning behind that name, and that's for him to explain, I guess. In any case, I found out he's been writing this music for himself. He's not an audio engineer, but he dabbles at home with a digital audio workstation. And he's super humble about his musical gifts, of which he has many. And he happened to mention to me very humbly in passing, oh yeah, I've been writing a few songs over the years, but I just write them for myself. I asked to hear some of his demos. Mate, ridiculous. They're ridiculous. His music is so good. When I heard the demos, I fell out of my chair. It's some of the best sort of prog rock stuff I've heard in years. I couldn't believe it, and I immediately hassled him and said, "What are you playing at? Keeping this music to yourself. We're making an album." And I convinced him to come over, but he lives very, very far away from me in the country. So we've decided to make a record, and we've already recorded the first track, but it's superb. And I couldn't be more excited about that project. And he can't play drums. I'm going to accidentally play drums on that, and he's very happy about that. So it's ended up being a bit of a collab, but it's Joe's music. It's absolutely superb, and I'm super passionate about it, and so pleased that Joe is now back in my inner circle, because he is one of my favourite humans ever. And yeah, that's the project 2332, and we'll be releasing some singles in the new year.
Lovely.
And with eventually releasing a deluxe version of a super fine album. So I'm super, super happy about that. Right, so Horace, in reference to the last Roger the Horace's Absolute Bangers, and we repeatedly refer back to this gentleman because we're obsessed with his music, Mr. Richard Marx.
And his trousers.
Now, you mentioned with great passion the song Wait for the Sunrise, and you mentioned that it's probably your favourite rock song of all time. I do believe you've got some Richard Marx news about that particular song, haven't you?
The Richard Marx News at 10 with Roger the Horace.
Now, last episode, after we'd finished, I attached myself to Mr. Richard Marx's Instagram. And it turns out that it must have been fate, because he actually narrated a story of the birth of that song, which was that he was contacted to write a song for a film called Tequila Sunrise.
I remember that. Wasn't Mel Gibson in that?
Yeah, I've not seen it. Have you seen it?
I think I've seen it, yeah. I don't remember it very well, though.
It's got Mel Gibson in it. I think it's got Michelle Pfeiffer in it. And there's another, it's one of these cop love romance things where there's a bad cop, I think, or something like that. Anyway. And it was, I don't think it was a big film, but he was contacted to write a song for the film. There was probably a meeting. They gave him a brief about what the film was about. So it's called Tequila Sunrise, hence the song Wait for the Sunrise, right? So he obviously wrote this hard-edged,
snub-nosed,
edged rock song for the film. Probably played it and thought, that's my finest hour. They're going to bloody all over that. Anyway, so he's gone down to the TV station, or the film people rather, with the song, and they probably played it, and they were probably expecting him to do a Right Here Waiting too, weren't they?
Oh, with After a Ballad.
Yeah. So either he didn't get the brief properly, or I don't know, or whatever. So anyway, so he says on his Instagram that he wrote that song for the film, took it down there. They hated it and said, we don't want that. We want a Right Here Waiting too. So he wrote...
No way.
Surrender to You, I think, is the song that's in the film of his, which is the one at the end of the film. But it wasn't sung by him in the film. It was sung by, now I can't remember. I think it's Robin Zander and One of Heart.
Sorry, I've got to chime in here. Whoever was deciding the soundtrack of that film was an absolute lemon.
Oh, yeah,
Why would you reject a song as obsessed
well, you see,
as Wait for the Sunrise? What a bunch of lemons.
I've thought about this quite a lot over the last week or so before we started talking.
Maybe it was destiny that it got rejected for that film, because maybe it wouldn't have ended up on Repeat Offender if it hadn't been, and then you wouldn't be loving it, mate, and listening to it on repeat for 3 hours on a Friday night.
I have done that.
I know.
Solely listened to one song for 3 hours solidly, just to completely learn the air guitar solo.
Yeah.
Absolutely pristinely, even the length of the notes held and everything like that. Because there's a part at the end of the solo when the solo goes over the top of the melody when it comes back in. You know that thing sometimes when they don't... Doesn't matter.
Well, there's a solo, and then there's a second part of the solo which is harmonised.
Yes, and he holds the last part of the solo over the top of the main riff comes back in, and he's still soloing when he goes into the last chorus, which is amazing.
Yeah,
the technique involved in that. somebody to actually decide that was going to happen. Anyway, it's two things have happened, which is one, it's annoyed me that song is that late on his album, and he's obviously just chucked it on the end because he was annoyed that it didn't get used in the soundtrack. And the second thing is that it wasn't in the film. And the thing is, when you actually watch a film and you see the credits going up at the end, it usually relates to what's just happened in the film as to what music they put over the credits.
Yeah.
People will argue me that's not true, but if there's a soppy ending and it's all sort of, and they're going off into the sunset.
That was true in the 80s. Maybe not now, but it was in the 80s. There'd be a long lingering shot, and then the film, and then the credits, and the music comes in.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you can't put, like, I can't remember. Doesn't Danger Zone in Top Gun, isn't that at the beginning? That isn't at the end, is it?
Yeah, that's at the beginning.
Isn't the it's like, I don't know, some instrumental. It's usually something a bit somber and a bit more romantically themed when the film's ended, isn't it? So Wait for the Sunrise doesn't fit at the end of the film, you see. But Surrender to You fits better over the end of the film. But that's why it wasn't in the film anyway. And that came...
Hold on a minute. You're not siding with the flipping production company, are you?
No, I'm not siding with the production company, but Wait for the Sunrise needs to be... We know where that should have been, Mad Max. Never mind that bloody Beyond Thunderdome thing with Tina Turner and that other idiot. That's where Wait for the Sunrise should have been, in Mad Max 3, Beyond the Thunderdome. But of course, Tina Turner come along and rasped all over it with her massive bouffant bloody barnet and her blinking legs that used to literally go up to her armpits. Amazing. Anyway, so that came from Richard Marx himself, so that must be true.
Yeah, but you know what? What you don't realise is that I have also got some Richard Marx news from the same Instagram account. Now, I didn't know that about that one. I must have missed that. But as a little surprise for you, Mr. Horace, I was blown away. Again, this was a little reel that Richard Marx did. He must be still sort of reaping the rewards of repeat offender, because this is another story about repeat offender. And it goes something like this. I'll try and remember. So, when he said he was making and recording repeat offender, the one album that he was absolutely obsessed by, and the album that he brought to every session in the repeat offender sessions that he wanted the production to reference by, was Hysteria by Def Leppard.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Because that's an amazingly produced... I mean, I could talk about that album for probably the whole hour of this podcast, because the production is absolutely insane. It was done by Mutt Lang, wasn't it? Oh, for... Edit number 412. I get sore thumbs fucking editing all the burps out of this.
Oh, God, I'm glad you're not here. Sorry.
Anyone for rich egg? Would you like some rich egg, madam? Anybody? Any takers? Rich egg, any takers? Well, they would like some rich egg. Rich egg, sir? Rich egg? For fuck's sake!
Hear me out. This is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning of the story. So, Richard Marx said, I think he said it was this year, like literally in modern day, he struck up a friendship with Phil Collen, the guitarist and one of the main songwriters from Def Leppard, a long-time member of Def Leppard. And he said he came over to England and went to Phil Collen's house because they've had this mutual respect for years. And he was sitting at the dinner table, and just on the mantelpiece above the dinner table, no word of a lie, was the vinyl of Repeat Offender. And he obviously raised an eyebrow, and Phil Collen apparently got really embarrassed and went, oh, no, I'm not kissing your butt. Honestly, I've just left it there because I've been listening to it this week because I've been in the studio with the Def Leppard boys, and one of the albums we've always been obsessed by with the production that we wanted to bring into the production because we wanted to mirror the production is your record, Repeat Offender. And then Richard Marx went, it's funny you should say that because that's reference from your particular album called Hysteria. Isn't that obsessed? They were both loving each other's records and they didn't even know. That's amazing. So I nearly fell off my chair when I saw that. So they both...
Yeah, that's mental.
So basically all Phil Collen really needed to do was reference his own record, Hysteria. But yeah, they were both loving each other's work and they ended up having dinner.
Amazing. Is he the one with the short hair and the vest who was in that band Girl? I think he is, isn't
Phil
he?
Collen's one with the short blonde hair, yeah.
Yeah,
he went bananas and started working out, and now he looks like flipping Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's all a bit weird. Great, fantastic guitarist, and by all accounts, I've heard he's a very nice bloke. So, yeah, what an amazing story that is. So, Horace, it's that time again.
Roger the Horace's Absolute Bangers.
What have you got for us this episode, Horace?
Right. I'm leaning towards glammy rock this time. And so I know we're big fans of that, so I thought I'd stick in that area.
Amazing.
And at first, my first tune is by a little known guitar player called Stevie Salas.
Oh, here we go. Stevie Salas in the house, mate. I think I already know what you're going to go.
Now,
what you're going to go with.
There's numerous reasons why this one's got to be in the list, but
Mate.
obviously Stevie Salas. Without looking this up from memory, he had there was a TV show that used to be on TV back in the 90s that we all talk about sometimes, which was Raw Power, and then it was Noisy Mothers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So for those that don't remember, I know we spoke about it before. It was a video only hour of metal, and back in the 90s, it was the only way you could see videos by those bands on UK TV, and they used to show it from sometimes at 1 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, and you didn't have a video, so you had to stay up and watch it.
Yeah.
Or if you did video it, the video never used to bloody well record it, did it? And then you'd end up missing it completely.
Or your mum would record over it before you got home from school by accident.
That's it. And Stevie Salas had a band called Stevie Salas Colour Code, didn't he?
Yes.
And if I remember rightly, I think the bass player in Colour Code was the guy that ended up in Vi with Steve Vai, that T.M. Stevens guy with the massive hair. Anyway.
Yeah.
They used to have a really, really dobber video for a song called The Harder They Come.
Hey, there we go. I knew it. Obsessed.
And it was one of those videos where somebody had obviously got a new piece of editing software that they wanted to use, where they were all sort of playing individually, weren't they? They just they each individually move around on a psychedelic background.
Well, the video's terrible, and I've got a serious beef for that video because they don't show him playing the solo, which is literally one of the finest rock metal solos in all of musical history.
That's it. And one of the funniest things that I've ever seen in my life was when I played that song. I think that was back in how long ago would that have been? That was a good sort of 10 years ago.
15 years ago, probably.
When we were listening to that song somewhere, and it became apparent that you knew how to air guitar the entire solo from start to finish. Now, for people that haven't heard that song before, the solo is quite complicated in that song.
It's insane.
And he goes berserk, and he also uses various different effects on the guitar. And
please, can I chime in? Because this is a beautiful moment for me, and I think this was sort of when our friendship really, really blossomed. Because you started playing that song, and we were a bit inebriated. And I sucked you in, really, because you didn't know that I had been listening to that song since the age of about 14. I was obsessed with that album, Stevie Salas Colour Code, and I had been perfecting for year after year, learning that air guitar solo in the hope that one day I'd meet someone that would also like that song, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to bust out the solo. And it just so happened it was you. I must have been practicing that air solo for about 20 years. And then after a few beers, you put it on, and I thought, this is it. This is fate. This is destiny. I'm going to do the solo perfectly, and you'll have to explain what happened next.
Well, it was absolutely brilliant. You air guitared it, note and poise. I mean, there's only so much you can do in an air solo normally, but when you actually play the solo like he plays it in the video, and at the very, very end of the solo, he does this great big high screeching whammy bar part, doesn't he? Which is absolutely hilarious.
And I massively over-exaggerated the tremolo use in the air solo, didn't I?
And I can still see you doing it. That absolutely made me nearly have a heart attack.
You did nearly have a heart attack.
So that's one of the... Yeah, I know, yeah, because I didn't think anybody even knew how that went.
You were rolling around on the floor gasping for air, if I recall, because you weren't expecting me to know the solo.
But that song is absolutely killer, but it is...
Brilliant.
I have to say, I do think it is it's towards the better end of the record, I think. The record's good, but that song is absolutely amazing.
Mate, I think the whole album's outstanding.
People need to key that into YouTube and watch that Dobber video right now and listen to the guitar solo in the middle. The Harder They Come by Stevie Salas Colour Code with no U in the colour because it's American.
Because it's American. Yeah, he's like, I found out in recent years that Stevie Salas was one of those sort of child prodigies, just amazing guitarist. And Stevie Salas Colour Code was like his own personal breakout project, but he's been for decades a very, very sought-after session player, and he even sessioned for David Bowie, man, when he was still knocking about and gigging. Yeah. absolute legend. But yeah, that album, so good, so good. And yeah, his guitar work on that is insane, isn't it?
It is insane.
And I love the bit in the big doo, 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 blah, doo, 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 blah, that bit. The drummer gets his fist with his drumstick, knocks it against his own head, doesn't he? In the video, it's brilliant.
I need to watch that again because that bit's escaped me. But the video is so bad that it's worth watching.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So yeah, I very, very believe it. It sort of does very sort of quick, slow, very quick close-ups on the drum kit as well when it comes to the front and back of the screen.
Yeah, but I swear to God, it is absolute sacrilege that they don't. It's so badly edited, you don't really capture him doing his solo. Which is why I'm glad that I filled in the gaps by doing an air guitar solo for you, because that's not fair.
I'm still glad I witnessed it. So I've not seen anything that funny, I don't think, since.
Another thing I love about that album is the production's really interesting. It's like on purpose, they've got this really echoey, huge bass drum with no cushioning in it. And it's really funny because in the video, he's got a massively oversized kick drum and it's really huge. Because in the album, it's like boo, ba-ga, boo, ba-ga, boo, 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 ga, boo, boo, boo. And the bass drum's huge, but it just adds to the sound. But in the video, they sort of play on that. And his bass drum is obviously not like that when he plays it, but it's overly huge. It's like Land of the Giants, his kick drum. It's really funny.
It sounds like they replaced the bass drum with like a wine barrel.
Or a tombola.
Yeah, or tombola, yeah.
Some sort of timpani, orchestral timpani or something.
Or a great bit of barrel, some sort of a barrel, I imagine. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, you're quite right. The drum sound on that record is a very, very, very interesting, worth hearing. There is an album. What's the album called? I think it's just self-titled.
It's just Stevie Salas Colour Code, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got that somewhere. That needs to be got.
Brilliant, mate. What else have you got?
So, I'm going to go next with Blackout in the Red Room by Love Hate.
Oh, come on, mate. One of my favourite ever bands, like metal bands ever, rock bands, whatever you want to call it.
For numerous reasons, more than anything else, that album is fantastic.
Absolutely brilliant.
Blackout in the Red Room, the Blackout in the Red Room song is fantastic. And the production on that record is something else. It really is absolutely something else. And I've listened back to a lot of the stuff that I've thought about putting in this list. And I don't think there's an album that came out around, when did that come out? 90? Or was it 91? I think it was 90.
You would know, mate.
I know. I ought to know that. I should have looked it up.
No, I'm complimenting the Roger the Horace photographic memory, mate.
Yeah, well, I can't remember what year that came out. I should have written that down.
Have a butcher's.
I'm pretty sure it's 1990. Anyway, I'm going with 90 as a guess.
Okay.
Love Hate's Blackout in the Red Room album is a superbly recorded album because it's absolutely enormous. The production on that record is absolutely something else.
It's massive, yeah.
Yeah. And if you watch the video for Blackout in the Red Room, which is basically them larking about in front of a white background, just doing, and Jizzy Pearl running down Jizzy Pearl's the singer. That's not his real name. I mean, who'd be called that for fuck's sake? But he's walking down a corridor, sort of doing weird stuff with his hands. And the whole... The drum sound on that album is absolutely phenomenal. And I put it on about half an hour before we did this, just to make sure that I knew what I was talking about. And that drum sound on that record is absolutely ridiculous. It's so massive. And the guitar sound on that record, the whole production on that is amazing. And the only thing that really annoys me about the video is the drummer is, what's his name? Joey Gold.
Joey Gold. Yeah, absolutely superb.
He's not playing the drums with the same conviction that he was when he recorded the record, and that annoys me a little bit in videos when people are not doing that. But I'll make an exception because that album is absolutely obsessed.
Mate, I've got to chime in. First thoughts about Love Hate. They always stood out for me when I was younger. If you think about it, Blackout in the Red Room is a pure 100% glam record, but... yeah. If you think about Love Hate after you've listened to the second album, Wasted in America, where they start playing around, they really start playing with time signatures. They start showing you what they're made of and how good the musicians are. They're incredible, that band. The musicianship is right up there. They are one of the standout bands because most glam bands are average musicians back in the day. They were. I don't care what anyone says. It's like punk. You can play a few riffs, blah, 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 bluff it and get it together and make a noise. But Love Hate always stood out for me because technically they were right up there as musicians. But they just happened to be playing glam. Joey Gold, unbelievable technical drummer. His drumming's amazing and all of their stuff. Jizzy Pearl does his thing, that screechy vocal, which is great. Skid, the bass player, writes 100% of all of their music, and he's an incredible bass player. And then they had, was it Johnny Love, the guitar player, and then Darren Householder came in for an album, I think played on Wasted America. It doesn't get much better than that. It's superb, and all the songs are brilliant. There's not one song of theirs I don't like from those first 2 records.
I heartily agree. Blackout in the Red Room and Wasted America are absolute classics of that ilk. And they had their whole own image going on, didn't they? Because their artwork... He painted all the artwork as well, the bass player.
He did.
Not only did he write all the songs, play the bass, and if you ever saw an interview with him, he used to talk in interviews like he was a complete idiot. He used to look like something that should be working on a farm.
Or crawled out of a swamp.
Yeah, with a big floppy hat on, like an absolute idiot.
But did you know this? When I was at school and when I was at college doing my A-levels, I don't know if you remember, but Love Hate always used to get painted artwork on their leather jackets.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? So I got the cover Love Hate's Blackout in the Red Room artwork done by a friend of mine, and he painted that on my leather jacket, and I wore that with pride, and I've still got it in my cupboard.
Oh, I didn't know that. Amazing. Really?
Still got it. Yeah, I was obsessed with Love Hate. And here's a little shout out. The person that drew that artwork on my leather jacket is none other than a gentleman called Corin Hardy, who I used to go to school with, who is now a world-renowned established director of movies.
Wow.
And I haven't seen him for a very long time, so shout out to Mr. Corin Hardy, who's probably never going to listen to this ridiculous podcast, but there you are.
Well, probably not, but you never know, he might, but it's all tied together. How strange is that?
I know. Small world, isn't it?
There we go.
Brilliant. Right, so Horace, I know you usually get 3 choices for your Roger the Horace's absolute bangers, but I've got a hijack it this week, mate, and I've just thought, if we're doing glam, can I have a choice? Because I've got something in mind.
You crack on, mate. Have a banger.
Right, here we go. I'm going straight in. Vain, No Respect. Remember that record? Mate, this is so weird that you wanted to do glam, because sorry, go on.
It's funny you say that, because there was a copy of that album in the record shop where I was the other day. It was £60. Oh. And I was thinking about getting it, but I didn't. £60 is a lot for a record, I'm afraid, so I didn't get it. Anyway, No Respect by Vain. I'll let you crack on.
Mate, thank you so much, because that album, I think, is a bit like... I consider it nowadays to be like one of those 80s B-movie underground classics, sort of low budget, that goes under the radar but ends up being like a cult classic on DVD like years later. It's absolutely superb. And one of the reasons I've been listening to that in the last month is because my mate recorded it on tape for me from a really scratched up vinyl. So the quality that I got on the tape was terrible, and I could never hear what Davey Vane, the vocalist, was saying. I couldn't make out the lyrics. But it's on Tidal nowadays, Tidal and Spotify. So I've been listening on Tidal, and you can read all the lyrics, can't you, as it's scrolling up. So I know all the lyrics now, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Mate, I've got to say with this album, it's absolutely brilliant. But it's sort of rubbish. Like the drummer's China cymbal, for a start, sounds like a busted Quality Street tin lid, which is hilarious. The bass sounds like a fart. The producer probably needs to be hung, drawn and quartered. It's so bad. But that's not the point. It's not sophisticated. It's not supposed to be. But for what it sets out to achieve, it scores all the top marks. It's brilliant. There's not a weak song on the record. It's like a constant flow of bangers. The lyrics are all about nothing, but really cool. There's always an awesome guitar solo in it, some sort of banging sing-along chorus. And I only found out recently that Davey Vane, the frontman, he wrote all of it.
Yeah.
Because he's a guitarist as well. It's absolutely awesome. And there's a song on there called Aces, right? And if you listen to that record, listen out for the end of Aces when he does this thing where he goes, I've got the hearts, diamonds, clubs, speeds, and your ass. And he goes, ding, 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 bam. It's like the coolest end. It's just the best. I can't name a glam record where the songs are as consistently good as Vane's No Respect. It's just absolutely brilliant. And I can't stop listening to it.
Now, I've not heard there's a remastered version of it came out in 2022, but I've not heard that. Sometimes remastered versions are terrible, but sometimes they're actually quite good. But I was going to go with the track. I remember the video for Beat the Bullet. There was a video for that track, I'm sure.
Great tune.
And I've got a feeling there was a video for Secrets as well. I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
But they're all bangers on that record. But I'm going to go with Aces just for what he screams out at the end of the song, because it's absolute glam rock genius. He doesn't get much better than that. I can't stop laughing, Rob. While we've been sitting here talking about all the glam stuff, I've had a memory that's just come up from school. So I've recently reconnected with an old school friend of mine called Dan Clark. Loveliest guy. I mean, he'd do anything for you. He's such a wonderful human being. And I'm going to go for a drink with him soon. And I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning this. But this is in the days at school. I remember it was during an art class. And you know, art classes sometimes at secondary school back in the day, they used to give you like an assessment. It was like for a few weeks, you'd have to come up with a piece of art. There was one module that we had to do, and it was all about sort of graphics and a mural or something, you know. And we just started getting into glam rock, in particular on our little gang, which me and Dan Clark were part of. We started to get a bit obsessed by Motley Crue, you know, when Dr. Feelgood came out. That's a banging record, wasn't it? For what it was.
Wow.
And he was, debatable. when he was doing his mural, it kept going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. It was really good because he was a really good artist. Except he'd been at it for about 3 weeks, and because it was so big, you had to sort of step back to see it all. And he just about finished it off in like week 3 of working on this mural. And I had to go to the loo in the classroom. And as I was coming back in the loo and I was zoomed out, I realised what he'd done. He'd written Motley Crue. And he'd left out the L. And I had the unfortunate job of going up to him and pointing out that he left the fucking L out. And he was absolutely gutted. And I seem to remember that he got so eggy, I think he might have trashed the mural because he realised he'd have to start again. But it doesn't matter because he's such an amazing creative person.
Brilliant.
He's actually got his own private company called Dan Clark Furniture. So go and check out danclarkfurniture.com because he makes all this bespoke furniture and it's absolutely amazing and he's super talented. But gone are the days of spelling murals wrong in art classes.
I'm surprised he hasn't got Dan Clark Furniture on his van or something like that. That'd be quite funny,
wouldn't it? So, Roger the Horace. I've decided to do something a little bit different for Roger the Horace's album review this week, this episode. I'm not actually going to send you an album. I'm going to send you one track. And I'm hedging my bets here because the track I'm going to send you is the aforementioned 2332 project, the first track that I've done with Mr. Joseph Payne, and it's called Counterpoint. And I sent it to you, didn't I? And I'm hedging my bets there. So, tentatively, it's now time for
Roger the Horace's album review.
So, my only question to you really, Horace, albeit with a large amount of trepidation, is what did you make of it?
Well, I quite liked it.
What? Really?
Jim?
I feel a bit faint.
You've got a funny sort of... Are you all right? Hello?
You've been listening to Backstage Pass with myself, James Maverick, and Rob Newson, a.k.a. Roger the Horace. If you want to get in touch with us lemons or ask us a question to discuss on the show, please get in touch via Instagram by using our handle, which is @BSPpod, or by sending us a direct email to bsppod@protonmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by Maverick Audio and produced by me. If you'd like your podcast or any other production produced, then visit my website at www.maverickaudio.co.uk and message me via the contact form. Please leave us a review, share our Cretinous pod, and remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Until the next time.
Hello?